So coming into round 3 here, a little bit behind as these players have already taken just a couple turns. Looks like Stefan opened with lesson, then dropped creature. Or sorry, it was probably lesson, gargoyle, lesson, bat. Then over here we had lesson, book, gargoyle, probably going into this third turn now. We used... And we took Errol out of his hand, and we also took Seamus out of his hand. Looks like we were using Draco effect there. We discarded in advance, and then we were choosing the cards. Okay. And looks like our strategy here is going to be to just keep discarding cards and taking cards out of his hand. But Stefan draws the Peeves, and the Peeves is a great counter to what Draco's trying to do here. Let's go ahead and just slam that Peeves down again. Like we were saying, Peeves, just a huge utility card. Lets you refresh your hand back up to 7 cards, and also discards your opponent's hand, which has the dual benefit of hand disruption and also dealing them another 7 damage effectively. And when Stefan's pushing in with this early creature aggression, that's going to get him there. Oh, we see Marcus Flint coming down here for Pat. Not a card that sees a ton of play. Marcus Flint lets you, once per game, make your opponent discard 3 cards from their hand. That's it. Just a straight discard for 3. Doesn't require an action, but of course he does have that requirement of the 2-action investment to get him down. So it's like a 2-action investment for a discard 3 on demand later. It does feel pretty bad if your opponent uses any kind of removal on your characters, but we're pretty confident here that Stefan is not going to be using any removal. We didn't see it in game 1 or 2. Or sorry, round 1 or 2, I mean. Going to be Quidditch in play, and it looks like that might be it. It looks like we're going to be using an action on Pat's turn to get rid of a Guide to Household Pets, to choose a creature and deal 4 damage to it, and we're just going to replace it with yet another Guide to Household Pets. Sorry, Pests. These Guide to Household Pests cards are going to be putting in a lot of work against these creatures, which are all going to be 4 health or less, except for the dragon. And then we're getting to see a lot of the parts of this deck we didn't get to see the round when we were watching the Draco deck against Harry Potter, because it was basically just doing adventure lock stuff, whereas here we're getting to see more of the creature angle. So it is going to be a Peeves activation here from Stefan, as we get rid of our hands and draw 7. And we can see how effective that is as also another type of pseudo damage to the face, as despite all the Dracoing and flinting and stuff like that, we're back up to 7 cards, and our opponent is down to 21. And the action that we are going to, or sorry, the adventure we're going to play this turn is Denoming the Garden. This is not an adventure that we see very often, so we're going to go ahead and go over it. You play this card only if you have 5 lessons in play. The caveat that stops a lot of these adventures from seeing a lot of play of the heavy adventure control decks. Effect is at the end of each of your opponent's turns, if they have any cards in their hand, they choose one and discard it. So the reason that that's cool is that's also what the gnomes do, is they make them discard a card at the end of their turn. And to solve it, they have to have that happen to them 5 times. They can't solve it any way with anything they do themselves. And the reward is just drawing a card. So basically, Denoming a Garden just sits in play and takes cards out of their hand for 5 turns. When combined with effects like the Gnome, it's going to be dealing, just a lot of discard effects, a lot of hand control. That's the theme of the deck. I remember when we were first testing a lot of the classic decks and we saw Draco's ability, we played a whole lot of games where we played every game by just using Draco's ability to take every single card out of your opponent's hand and then starting the game. Like, he didn't start the game until you took all their cards. I just figured my deck will be better built to play off the top than theirs. Sometimes it works. Cornish Pixie coming down in play. You're going to take a peek at your hand, snag one of those cards. Honestly, I think you have to take Fred and George here, because Fred and George just make the other adventures and every adventure for the rest of the game that much better. I love that the package that we're running, our like sub-package here, is owls. No, we took the household pests guide. That's fine. You figure you steal the creature removal, because otherwise he's just going to bop the pixie anyway. And we go ahead and we run out a gargoyle of our own, and playing these two creatures slows down the damage that the sandstone gargoyles from our opponent will be doing. So now it's just the good old-fashioned 2 damage versus 2 damage here. Tawny Owl is pretty cool. It's a 3-cost creature that lets you put a non-healing item into your hand from your discard pile. It's really cool when you're using those books, you know, like the Guide to Household Pests and the Cage, another monster of removal. Locked In, very powerful adventure coming down here. Locked In is going to say that your opponent gets 1 fewer action on each of their turns. Even the turn that they solve it, they get 1 fewer action. And in order to solve it, they have to discard 4 cards from their hand, and their reward is they can draw 2 cards. So the proper way to deal with this is to solve it straight away. Stefan highlighting that denoming the garden's effect is triggering, and it's going to get rid of Fred and George Weasley. Interesting choice. Fred and George should probably be hitting the table. Oh, so we used Marcus Flint as well, so we're making sure that he doesn't have enough cards in his hand to solve this. But what we're going to do on Stefan's turn is we're going to use our first action to draw a card. We're going to solve Locked In, and then draw 2 cards, and that's our turn. That's fine, though. Oh, no, we're going to go ahead and just live Locked In. We're going to just hang out in the Dursleys, locked in our bedroom. Looks like we're just going to play Fouled, and that's going to be our turn. So I don't like that, because Locked In has taken away 2 of our actions now instead of just 1. And then we're in the same spot next turn where we have to draw a card and do it. But if he uses Draco to bring our cards down lower, it's just going to get harder for us to solve Locked In. I think we had to take the opportunity when we had it there. We had to use an action to draw a card, solve Locked In, and end with the same number of cards in our hand as right now. Just a little less damage. We would still have the Fouled. Oh, no, we wouldn't. We would have gotten rid of all those cards. But, you know, I don't think the Fouled was that huge of a deal. Because sure enough, there it is. He's going to just use Draco's ability, and he's going to take a card out of the hand there. Denumbing the Garden's going to go and get another card out of Pat's hand. But now Stefan's still under Locked In, so he's going to play Shooting Star as his 1 action. I mean, he's way ahead. I don't know that Pat has any healing cards that we've seen. And, you know, if both these guys just keep trading 2, then Pat's going to lose in 4 turns. But I still think I like the other play better. But that's just me. Denoming the Garden, taking another card. And we're hitting Sandstone Gargoyle, Fred and George into the discard pile. Fred and George is the only card on the ban list that is still allowed to be played. Just can't be a starting character. So starting with Draco here instead. And again, we're living in this locked-in. Locked-in has now taken 3. This is about to take its 4th action away from us. We could have just solved it that first turn, which I think we should have just, should have done it. Get rid of the locked-in, because our opponent doesn't have anything that's letting him play this cheaper, so he spent his entire turn to lock you in. Then if you just spend your turn solving it, I mean, you're sitting here at parity, and parity is exactly what Stefan wants because he's ahead on damage. And, parity in this case includes both of these players taking 2 damage a turn. He's still going to get it here, I think, because I don't know what Pat could do to get that much damage out that fast with only 2 lessons in play. And I don't think he has anything that can stall long enough for him to get an advantage back. We haven't seen any healing cards. We might see some of those get sideboarded in for game 2. An ouch coming down here from Stefan. And I mean, I think that we already had it either way, but of course, ouch is just going to go ahead and seal the deal. We're going to game 2. I mean, those last 3 turns were kind of just like, hey, this is inevitable. Let's scoop and go to the next game. So now these guys are going to side. If I was Stefan, what do you want to side in? I mean, you know that Draco's coming for your hand. And that you're going to be just doing a race here. Maybe you put in 1 or 2 things that, I don't know, you don't really want to do anything that buffs your creatures or protects your creatures. You want to go ahead and just let him use his removal on your creatures. You just want to make sure that you're matching his removal with more just bodies, because, making him always deal with your stuff is better than the other way around. Make him reactionary. Because he's trying to just lock you down, so if he has to deal with what you're playing, he's not really going to have much of a chance to actually lock your hand. I think that the brooms and everything like that are fine. They're getting you there. I don't know exactly what's in his sideboard. If I could see the 15 cards in the sideboard, I could tell you, which ones I would recommend. But I think that if he has any more peeves, I would put a few more of them in there. He's noticing that he's going to have to come back from a low hand size in order to stop this onslaught from these adventures. He might also put an adventure answer or 2 in the deck. Maybe he's got filled to the sideboard. McGonagall might be hanging out on the sideboard, and now you can just slap her in because he's not starting her. So it depends. Excuse me. All right, game 2 here. Let's see how it starts. Let's see what choices we made on the sideboard. For Pat, I would be siding in just a... I don't even want to say more creature hate because the creature hate is already there. I know that Quarrel is a sideboard card for some people. I would be ramping up however many of those I have because my opponent isn't just doing creatures, he's also doing items. And my items are good against his stuff too, so I could use them on his stuff and then use Quarrel when I'm out of them. Although that is weird sequencing that you have to worry about. Maybe not worth. Yeah, this is a great opener for Stefan here. He's just going to get Seamus online right away, giving him that action advantage for the rest of the game. He's going to immediately discard 2 cards that he's not playing in the next 5 turns, and he's going to play a lesson down instead. Great investment. Pat feeling like he kind of has to match that speed, following up his turn 1 double lesson with the lesson gargoyle, and both of these are extremely standard openings. Seamus, discard 2 for an action lesson, and lesson gargoyle are probably 2 of the most common openings I see. Then we're gonna go ahead. I mean, real high level play where this guy's in like everything. Care of Magical Creatures is coming down. Quidditch coming down. Or Quidditch is already down, rather. Oh no, did we just... Ooh, action to draw a card. Yike. Actually, it might have been action draw a card. Discard 2, action draw a card. And it's going to be In the Stands. This adventure getting played by the Draco deck. In the Stands is your opponent can't play creature cards. To solve, he has to discard 4 creatures from his hand, and the reward is you may draw a card. I'm hoping that Stefan was able to sneak some adventure answers into his deck, knowing that that's what the opponent is leaning so heavily on. I would love to see a Argus Filch. But using actions to draw these cards is indicative of us searching for an answer, not of having one. So he drew 1 for turn, and he drew 1 with an action. If I had to guess, he's currently wrestling between what he wants to use Seamus on or just casting a card. So we did discard 2 for Seamus, and we're probably going to be playing another character or a adventure. Oh, sorry, excuse me. No, it looks like we changed our mind on a card there, and then we put another Care Magical Creatures lesson into play. Stefan living his life in the stands right now, not really able to do much about that. Finally draws the 4 creatures, shows all 4 of them, and gets the In the Stands solved. So he's able to, as a reward, just draw a card. It would be very, very unfortunate to see another In the Stands come down here. In the Stands accomplishing its goal of not only slowing down the creature plays, but also emptying Stefan's hand. Well, he was able to sneak a gargoyle out there. Both of these guys trading 1 damage back and forth. Garden Gnome in the discard pile for Stefan, and Escaping the Dursleys in the discard pile for Pat. Escaping the Dursleys is going to be very ineffective against a player who you know plays Peeves when Peeves is not on the board. Not really a card you want to draw right now, so you don't hate having that go to the discard pile. Looks like that card is going to be the Shooting Star Broom. Probably going to go ahead and just save that for a rainy day. I doubt we're looking to use an action to draw a card and then use an action to discard to draw 2. So we might just be turning this card we draw off the top of our deck into 2 cards next turn. It's really all the same though. I mean, you should really just leave the Broom in play and look to get those 5-drop spells off. That in the stands, it might have been enough to slow Stefan down. Is now Pat is just responding with a army of creatures here, including some gnomes of his own, and a Trevor that's going to soak some of that spell damage from things like Fouled right here. Are we going to opt to use Trevor? Trevor is he could take the damage instead. That's exactly what's going to happen. Trevor's going to take 4 damage from Fouled. We're going to get 1 less action next turn, but it's fine because Pat barely has any cards to spend his actions on. And Pat's fine to just kind of, again, stall out because he's dealing 2 damage for every 1 of Stefan's. He's 11 cards higher in health. Just going to be a garden gnome swarming the board here. The garden gnomes are going to make sure that that hand stays absolutely empty, although Stefan is basically just playing off the top anyway. Unfortunately, without a draw engine for Stefan Seamus, is basically just sitting here now, not doing much at all. We are going to get to draw with one of our actions and play Cornish Pixie, which, even though Cornish Pixie's not really going to find anything to take, it's just another body. We're trying to push that damage advantage, and things aren't looking good for Stefan. Black Bat, now that's the kind of creature he wants to be seeing. He does not want to see that go into damage. That does not feel good. What's it gonna be? Another foul coming in. Trying so hard to deal some damage to the face and slow Pat down a little bit because Stefan needs to catch up. Pat using actions to draw cards is good news for Stefan. Unfortunately, Stefan probably going to be doing much of the same next turn. Pat happy with this position. Basically has everything he needs on the table to ensure that Stefan is top decking for the rest of the game. Pat really just looking for some finishers here, or anything to help him stay ahead on damage, aka more creatures, more bodies, whatever. Stefan doesn't really have the luxury of holding answers, so Pat could easily just play out another adventure here and call it a day. And it looks like they finished 3 games at the other table already. We do have the results in. It's Sammy is going to be the one who took that game. 2-1. So Sammy probably going to go ahead and grab second place tonight. If Stefan clutches this first one. And then, of course, if it goes the other way, we'll have ye old 3-way tie. You know how round robins go. Oh wait, sorry. Never mind. Ignore everything I just said. I had the records wrong. The 3-way tie, not possible today. What to do, what to do. Both of us are in, like, top deck mode. Letters from no one is at the table, and it looks like, oh, baby, that's going to be scoop, scoop, scoop. Game 3 here. So Letters from No One comes down and basically stops Stefan from playing anything except for lesson cards. It's all just, it's another layer of lock. Stefan's behind on damage. He's probably not going to be catching up. He figures, let's just go to game 3. Let's scoop it up. This is going to be our last game tonight, guys. Whoever wins this match is going to probably come out on top, I believe, looking at the record. Yeah, even if Pat takes it over Stefan, since Stefan was undefeated going into this round, Pat's probably going to take it, so it's going to be, we're playing for keeps, for bragging rights. For first place, as it were. Now, as far as openers go, Stefan's looking for less and less, but Pat is probably just looking for, you know, a handful of strong adventures. And it just forced Stefan to start solving them. Since you know he doesn't have any way, there's no spot removal. There it is, exactly what I said. There's no spot removal for the adventures in the deck. And we haven't seen him sideboard in any answers, no characters, no, you know, permanent removal, nothing like that. So we're going to just jam in the stands right away. Now, the thing I don't like about this, I really would have liked to have seen this Draco twice on turn 1 in the stands follow-up, because you want in the stands to basically get rid of his whole hand, but what you really want is you want him to have to find 4 creatures. So Draco would have let us see if we were playing this into an immediate solve, because if he draws here for turn, solves by discarding 4 creatures and draws 2, that's fine. He wasn't really into the part of the game where he's trying to jam the creatures except for the gargoyles anyway. Looks like we are just going to play a lesson and draw a card, though, as for our turn, and we give Pat the perfect opportunity to invest 2 more actions into another character that's going to hang out for a long time, Madame Pomfrey. Since he's successfully slowed the beginning of the game down to a crawl within the stands, he has time to invest in these characters. It's going to pay dividends later, that's for sure. Again, knowing our opponent has no removal for permanence. I actually really like this response from Stefan. He solves in the stands because he needs to be able to play his creatures. Gets rid of all these, you know, 4 creatures, 2 black bats, and then Doxy and the dragon. That's fine. He's not going to play them anyway. And he slams down 2 gargoyles. Now, normally, these gargoyles aren't as good in this matchup because of all the creatures on both sides, but seeing these heavy character investments, I mean, the action character turns, that's 6 actions into only 2 cards that are still on the table, both of which are late game effects. I mean, Hannah's going to get better as we deal more damage here, but still, Stefan's going to get plenty of turns of those gargoyles doing maximum damage. I mean, right now those gargoyles are coming in for 6 apiece, and yeah, this is like 2 turns of that just unchecked. Pat desperately trying to get some more creatures down into play here. And the thing is, Stefan's just going to hang out with that Peeves until he feels like he needs to deal that extra damage, or until he runs out of gas in his hand. But either way, it's fine for him. He's going to go ahead and foul here. So that's 6 from the creatures, 4 from fouled. That puts us down to only 1 action, meaning we can only play a lesson, but we can't play lesson creature. That's huge. So we get our book down, which is our 3rd lesson. We can't use pests to remove one of the gargoyles yet, and we can't play a gargoyle of our own yet. That means 1 more turn of 6 damage, and that plus the P's, it's pretty devastating. Thank God we got that Pomfrey out on turn 2, because we're going to need to use her, and we're going to need to use her soon. And wow, it's funny how, game 1 pretty close. Game 2 seemed like, I don't want to say a blowout, but it was definitely in Pat's favor for most of the game. And game 3, it's just the other way around. I mean, Stefan is cleanly ahead here by almost a third of a deck, right? By 20 some cards, more than a third of a deck. And he's got the better board position as well. This hand of Abbott is going to need to turn into some goddamn miracle cards. Because the thing with the Hannah is she's only as good as the things you can actually play in your discard pile. And we're only up to 3 lessons. So there's not a whole lot of crazy stuff she can bring back. Let's see, Pat's drawn for turn. Trying to figure out how he's going to get out of this. I mean, he sees the peeves. He knows that's 7 damage. He has to get rid of these gargoyles. I mean, so yeah, the Doxy and the Trevor, right? They're going to make the gargoyles do less. But the gargoyles are still putting him on a clock. You figure he has to draw a card every turn, so that's 1 damage. The gargoyles are doing 2 more, so that's 3 every turn. So with Peeves, you're looking at 3 turns and no additional card draw for Pat, except for Pomfrey. Pomfrey is going to give him, another 4 turns, basically. Assuming Stefan doesn't do anything else as far as damage is concerned. But we're still looking at an absolute total of 7 turns for Pat. He's got to figure out how to win this in those 7 turns. And Stefan is sitting at 41 health with, a board that he really doesn't mind too much you interacting with, because he's got a lot of ways to reload. The Peeves there is doing dividends. Paying dividends, rather. Can't do dividends. You all know what I mean. Also, this is my bad, guys. I didn't have the alerts on because there's a whole new stream set up for me. But I really do appreciate the follows. Thanks, guys. We're going to be doing these Harry Potter tournaments on Tuesdays, so feel free to check in. Also, if you're into trading card games and other popular nerdy IPs, this is chiefly Final Fantasy channel. We stream plenty of Final Fantasy trading card game content, so stop by on Wednesdays or Sundays, and you can see some of that awesome content too. Stefan getting down his Errol. Errol's going to reveal that top card. And it looks like it was not a hit this time, as we're not immediately slamming it into the field, but that's fine. Errol doesn't hit every time. When he does, he's a hell of a lot of efficiency out of 1 action. But right now, he's just another damage. I mean, those 1 damage are really going to add up. It's going to keep Stefan in this. He just has to get another turn of the Gargoyle and the Errol hit with the Peeves and watch his opponent draw into his demise over the next 2 turns. I mean, Peeves is sitting there on the table snickering because he knows full well that he's how this game is going to end. And the best part about that Peeves is that Stefan played that Peeves as an insurance policy against his own hand getting destroyed. And also to make sure that he had enough action. But Peeves has, is just so good at his dual purpose. Has so much utility. That Peeves is actually just going to hang out on the board and threaten an inevitable lethal turn. And that's fine too. If you're Pat, what do you do here? You've got... you're looking at 2 turns. Tops. You gotta deal 38 damage. I just don't think we have it. I don't think we have a way in the deck to deal that much damage. I think everything about the deck is... incremental value over time. That's just supposed to lead to an insurmountable action advantage or card advantage. And I don't think we've been able to gain that amount, that level of card advantage or action advantage here. Pat doing anything other than using Pomfrey this turn is... I mean, not doing anything, but basically not using Pomfrey this turn is an enormous mistake. He has to. We're going to go ahead and use our hand Abbott. We're going to move Cage and Privet Drive to the discard pile. What are we going to get back? We don't play Riding the Centaur, although that would be kind of nice. It's not enough to stop it, though. We need to get rid of this Peeves. I just don't think we can. It looks like we're going to trade those 2 cards for a Guide to Household Pests and another Guide to Household Pests. We can play and use one now, but we can't do both. Nope, looks like that was... Oh, wait, we just played both of them. Next turn, we're going to use both of them. Wow, we didn't use Pomfrey? That's so ballsy, man. If he had a Fouled in his hand... I guess you have Trevor out. Trevor could soak the damage, but still, man, I don't know. That's ooh, that's Flirt with Disaster. Why not just use Pomfrey? There it is. Actually, that's gonna do it. Wow. I mean, see, we really should have used Pomfrey. We didn't respect the explosive damage that creatures can do that these decks have. Again, here, this is one of the best creatures in the game. Stefan playing Welsh Green Dragon, and Welsh Green Dragon and Peeves are just some tier 1 cards. Welsh Green Dragon are going to deal 6 on enter, and Peeves is going to just end the game. And I said it when Peeves got played earlier. I said it in the game when we wanted Peeves earlier today in round 1. Peeves is just that powerful of a utility character. It's a must run. There should be a Peeves in every deck. Card is incredible. And the card is going to win the game here for Stefan, win the match, and that's going to be 3-0. For Gilderoy Lockhart. Really, Gilderoy not being too much of the centerpiece here, but in fact, he is still just giving us small advantages over our opponents. I think really what was best here was our low creature curve with strong finishing plays like Welsh Green Dragon and Peeves. We're playing smart amount of the utility cards, and we're playing around what our opponent has pretty well. Because Stefan, he's been around the block. He knows what he's doing when it comes to this game. Not the kind of guy who's going to be running out his answers willy-nilly, you know, reserves some of these powerful effects like Peeves for the perfect moment, not just a moment. Some of these things that you see that come with, you know, experience. But it is really neat to get to see some of these games today. We had a lot of really, really close games. I think this was a close one for Pat. Pat probably could have took it. This could have gone either way. Like I said, the beginning of round 3 here was really slow for Pat, and we should have used that palm free a little bit earlier. We played her on turn 2, and we didn't really get anything out of that investment. By the time we got to the Hannah, it was just like, you know, we did the household pets. So with these two being our first 2 turns, and then the adventure, Stefan just happened to have enough characters in his hand to solve. That's pretty tough. For that too, like I said, I kind of like using Draco first there to check the hand, because we would have seen that his hand was just chock full of monsters. And we would have maybe been able to mitigate that double gargoyle turn, because he rode that double gargoyle pressure all the way to the win here. But these are just little things to look at, little things to learn from, and that's exactly why we're streaming these with commentary every Tuesday, guys. So if you are not familiar with Final Fantasy, oh my goodness. If you're not familiar with Harry Potter, then hey, you know, come check us out. Come check out the revival. Join the revival, HarryPotterTCG.com. And we'll be here on next Tuesday, guys. Take care.